Welcome to the Contrarians, where we are right and you are wrong. I'm Julio.
And I'm Alex. Here on the show, we rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine. For the first half of each episode, Contrarians Corner, we trash the fresh red tomatoes and praise the rotten green splotches, making our case any way we can.
The aptly titled Real Talk serves as the second half of each episode. This is where we discuss our true feelings on the movie we're covering. For more information on our podcast and to browse past episodes, you can head over to our website, wearethecontrarians.com.
From there, you can also access our Patreon and merchandise, because capitalism.
If you enjoy our attempts at comedic film discussions, we encourage you to subscribe and leave us a review on whatever podcatcher you use.
If you'd like to reach out to us directly, that's what social media is for. You can find us on most platforms as @ContrarianPrime.
You can also see what we look like if you go to youtube.com/@ContrarianPrime, and you can contact us by email at wearethecontrarians@gmail.com.
I think that covers it.
Then it's time for the podcast. And we are recording for Contrarians Corner for Confessions of a Shopaholic, our fifth PJ party.
Hello and welcome to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. My name is Alex, joined as always by my friend and co-host Julio. I guess my what's her name? Kristen Ritter to Isla Fisher. Well, I would be Kristen Ritter because you are an immigrant, so you would need to be Isla Fisher.
I thought that I would be Kristen Ritter because you're the one that just can't stop buying wrestling memorabilia and VHS tapes.
I would be Kristen Ritter because I'm more likely to die of a heroin overdose than you are, Julio.
But she didn't die, Alex. Jane is alive.
But yes, it is yet another PJ party, a return to form, a return to financial success for one PJ Hogan, as he tackles an adapted screenplay of the secret dream world of a shopaholic. And it looks like Shopaholic Takes Manhattan. Looks like these were two books that were kind of combined here to form one.
Are there more in the series? Is there like a Shopaholic in space?
I've never heard of Chicklit, Julio. It's CHICK-LIT. I guess this is female literature.
Right, the book equivalent of a chick flick.
I guess so. And yes, there is a whole series, most recently an entry in 2019, this being the two releases from 2000 and 2001. It's based off of those. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, looks like 8 other ones.
Oh my God. So they're building up to Shopaholic versus Jason?
I was going to say it's going to be like Twilight in that the last 2 books are going to be split into 4 movies. Assuming they can get Isla Fisher, assuming they can get Leslie Bibb back to reprise her role, and Hugh Dancy, who I have no knowledge of.
Oh, dude, Hugh Dancy. It's Will Graham from the Hannibal TV show. He had a very tense relationship with Hannibal himself. You know, he's you know who Will Graham is, right? You watched Red Dragon?
Yeah, moons ago, but yes.
So the police officer, the investigator, the Ed Norton character, that's Will Graham. So he was like, the first person that faced off against Hannibal. And then they write Will Graham off the story, and then comes Jodie Foster, Clarice for Silence of the Lambs. But then the Hannibal TV show took the prequel, took Red Dragon and everything that happened before Red Dragon and made a whole show, 3 seasons of prequel, basically. And Hugh Dancy played Will Graham, and he was tortured, and he had feelings for Hannibal that you could read as subtext. It's a very different portrayal of a character compared to what he's playing here, which is, I don't know, Prince Charming?
Yeah, the generic male counterpart in a romantic comedy. But he brings a lovely English accent to it, and a bit of unkempt hair and facial hair.
Is he the British Patrick Dempsey?
He gets to make Fred Armisen look like an asshole.
Always a good thing. Not an easy task, but somebody has to do it.
Of course, the reason we're here, PJ Hogan, the director. Screenplay was adapted by Tim Firth, Tracy Jackson, and Kayla Alpert. And these entries, these books, the Chicklit, as it was, Sophia Kinsella. So it was produced, did you catch, by Jerry Bruckheimer.
I did.
Yeah.
Some of the quotes, I don't remember if I pulled any of them, but they were making allusions to it being Jerry Bruckheimer's first romantic comedy.
Yeah.
I guess The Rock doesn't count.
I mean, technically, yes, this is a romantic comedy, but there's still some, like, film elements you can hang your hat on to be proud. Known comedic actress Kristen Scott Thomas brings some prestige to this movie.
Yeah, it's her, Goodman, and Cusack. John Goodman,
absolutely.
Joan Cusack, and Kristen Scott Thomas just making sure that the kids are all right.
So over on Rotten Tomatoes, 27%. That surprised me, Julio, when you laid out the roadmap for our summer project, and I saw this was green, a nasty green splotch, based on almost 200 reviews also. So, it earned its 27%. But I always thought this was a movie people liked.
Alex, there is that reason why, and it's going to become apparent when I read you these quotes.
The box office return may have been the thing I confused it with, because a budget of $44 million did over $110 million at the box office, which was just enough to pay off Lithgow's fee. So,
so not quite my best friend's wedding money, but at least. Do you think that this was where Hollywood's like, all right, we forgive you for Unconditional Love, we forgive you for Peter Pan, we'll give you a superhero movie next?
It would seem that way. This was definitely not quite, this wasn't my best friend's wedding in terms of success, but a return to form, an improvement upon the previous outings of the aforementioned Unconditional Love and Peter Pan. But Julio, I'm curious. Let's go ahead and get to it. 27%. What don't I know? Where's the beef here?
Rebecca Bloomwood. Occupation, journalist. Jacket, Visa. Dress, Amex.
Let's see. The first couple quotes, they're not very revealing, but we'll build to it. We'll build to the reveal. We're going to start with Tricia Olszewski from Washington City Paper, Rotten Splotch. And then she says, the offenses of Confessions of a Shopaholic are legion, but worst is its portrayal of women as easily crazed, irrational dopes.
Okay.
I mean, I would say that is the portrayal of men and women in most romantic comedies to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
This is just the formula. This is just how it works. You have to have characters that are easily crazed, irrational dopes, and then by the end of the movie, they've either become less crazed, less irrational, and less dopey, or they found people that are just as crazed, as irrational, and as dopey as they are, and they're just meant for each other. That's just how it works.
The Sex and the City television show benefited greatly from this ideal.
Yes. And then, obviously, at the end, Big was just as easily crazed, irrational, and dopey as Sarah Jessica Parker. Next, Sarah Michelle Fetters from MovieFreak.com says, in other words, bimbos rule, and if a girl wants to be anything more than that, the only thing she can expect from life is to live it completely alone. What is she talking about? She's not a bimbo. The movie shows that she is resourceful and she has her own way of thinking and she comes out ahead.
An unlikely intellectual.
Yeah. She's non-traditional, but that doesn't mean that she's a bimbo.
No.
It's almost like Sarah Michelle Fetters just watched the first 10, 15 minutes. And then when they got to the drunk scene, it was like, oh no, I'm out. I don't like what they're doing with my girl.
Saw she had a pink stationery and was like, this is too much.
Fucking bimbos. All right, Alex, here we go. I'm going to read you these 4 in succession. This is how we close the quotes section, but you're going to see what the theme is. And honestly, I had never even considered it, but here we go. Now, I guess our Perry Seibert from TV Guide, who says, considering that the country is in deep financial turmoil, it's hard to sit through a movie so flippant about personal bankruptcy. Next, Claudia Puig from USA Today says, not only is it an unfunny movie shrilly told, it probably is the most ill-timed and appallingly insulting movie in recent memory. Next, Linda Bernard from Toronto Star says, it's very hard to watch a wild-eyed woman engage in an orgy of avarice using a fan of maxed out cards when so many have lost so much, even if there is a message within the madness that fiscal responsibility is the true key to happiness. And finally, Elizabeth Weitzman from New York Daily News says, here we are, only 9 months after the Sex and the City movie, and an obsessive spender with an overstuffed closet and credit card bills to match no longer seems quite so cute.
Okay.
Alex?
Go back to the previous one. The line I want you and our listeners to remember, orgy of avarice.
Yes.
If you could only see how hard I rolled my eyes when you read that.
To be completely fair, Linda Bernard is from the Toronto Star, which I'm assuming is a Canadian publication. Greed doesn't exist in Canada. So for them, this is quite a culture shock. But I mean, okay, so these 4 quotes maybe remind us that once upon a time, and not that long ago, I guess, America was not the superpower that it is today. And so
of course would have been during the housing crisis, the sub mortgage, I forget, subprime mortgage crisis. That was it. 2008 is the year that's usually cited with it. So yeah, it's funny that this is 15 years ago, only 15 years ago. And there's like awareness to that level. Now, if a movie came out about like people being in debt, no one would fucking care. But if there's like a social faux pas on it, oh my God. But it's very funny to listen to those back to back to back, to see that was the thing that this fucking, they were so concerned with that they couldn't look past it for this dumb fucking 100-minute Isla Fisher romantic comedy.
It's wild that they would take that much offense about a movie that is so inoffensive. Like, what else were they taking offense to?
Brother, who knows? I know that like Taken was #1 in the box office when this came out. So
that's what people wanted.
Where are the goalposts, man?
Well, I mean, Liam Neeson is well known for how conservative he is when it comes to spending. All those Taken movies, he flies coach.
Yeah, I mean, we're about to get into it here. I'm about to hit the ground running with Rebecca Bloomwood, but all that stuff kind of went over my head. I mean, I'm aware of the financial, the dire straits a lot of the country was in, but it's just, I guess that's an interesting note to start on, that there's such apathy now that it's worse. No one can afford homes and shit anymore. And if something like this came out, no one would fucking bat an eye. Well, no one would go see it because it'd be at the movie theater. And then two, we've started this off, and that's like revelatory to me. The idea that people were hung up about that in regards to this movie.
Makes you go even harder in Contrarians Corner.
It may.
Because you know that thing when you see someone cute and he smiles and your heart kind of goes like warm butter sliding down hot toast? Well, that's what it's like when I see a store.
But let's get to it. Shopping addict Rebecca Bloomwood lives in New York City with her best friend Suze and works as a journalist for a gardening magazine, but dreams of joining fashion magazine Alette. On the way to an interview with Alette, she tries to purchase a green scarf, but her credit card is declined. Rebecca offers to buy all the hot dogs from a hot dog stand with a check if the vendor gives her back change in cash, claiming that the scarf is a gift for her sick aunt. The vendor refuses, but another customer gives her the $20 bill she needs for the scarf. This is Hugh Dancy. So our cast of characters, real quick to go ahead and establish. Suze is Kristen Ritter. Jane, yes. Isla Fisher, of course, plays Rebecca Bloomwood. Hugh Dancy is our generous stranger here with the $20 bill. He plays Luke Brandon. And then we have Alette is based on Alette Naylor, played by star of The English Patient and Only God Forgives, Kristen Scott Thomas. And then elsewhere we have Leslie Bibb roaming about, who was it easy for you to see immediately that she was going to be the villain in this movie? Oh,
she has the villain haircut, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true. Just an evil Leslie Bibb. This would have been 3 years after Talladega Nights.
But not this 2008, right?
9. I forgot to mention that very beginning of 2009. It came out on February 13th of 2009. In fact, Valentine's Day release, Valentine's Day weekend release.
Okay, so she had already been in the most important movie in film history, at least recent film history. She already slept with Tony Stark in the first Iron Man.
I forgot she was in that. Yep. Yeah, Talladega Nights. And then her run after that is Sex and Death 101, Iron Man, The Midnight Meat Train. Oh, she's in Trick or Treat. I still have never seen that movie. I need to get on that. And then brings us to Confessions of a Shopaholic. Alicia Billington. So, Julio, hit me with your thoughts here on this shopping addict thing. Not to trivialize it by calling it a thing. It's obviously addiction is a very real thing. Impulse control it's all very real. And at parts of this movie does kind of tackle the topic in a bit of a silly way of her, like, talking to mannequins and convincing herself she needs something. But by the time this movie concludes, the evils of this affliction are shown in great detail and how it kind of like derails her life. Here in the beginning, though, I feel like the movie's just kind of, baby stepping you into the situation. It's making you comfortable before it makes you face the harsh realities that we're dealing with.
Yeah, I think that it's trying to play fair for those who are more likely to have a mild shopping addiction and those who are blessed with not having to worry about it. We just said a little bit ago about you and wrestling memorabilia and Criterions. I have a pretty hefty movie collection as well, and if I don't control myself, I can go down the collectible side too, like my comic book collection, my book collection, and so on. So, I don't think I have a shopping problem, but of course, you never do, I guess. But I do know that I have that I do get that rush whenever you see something you want and you buy it and then you just put it on your shelf and then you never touch it again. And so for me, this is easy to relate to. When I see her and she's like, oh, I want this, and then I'm gonna try to like finagle my finances to get there and get it. That's easy. But then I have to think there are other people that they just don't, they get their highs from other things and not from just impulse shopping. And so for them, you need this voiceover and this kind of step-by-step unfolding of her world as a shopaholic. And I think that he does
narration, by the way, provided by Isla Fisher.
Yeah. She takes you by the hand and gently takes you shopping. You see her get excited. She explains how she feels every time she buys something, and it's very evocative, very PJ Hogan, right? In all the movies that we've done of his before, I think that he excels at communicating feeling. And how Muriel felt when she listened to ABBA. How Julia Roberts felt whenever she saw Delma Mulroney again. How Isla Fisher feels when she buys that scarf. It's like, yes, I get it. There's a filmmaker making me feel things. So it's great. I think that you're right. It is a serious issue. I think the movie, under all the silliness of it being a rom-com, treats it seriously. It shows that she is deep in debt and this could absolutely ruin her life. And the only reason it doesn't happen is because this is a movie and it's a happy movie. So of course everything works out. But I think the message stands that this is a problem. Even worse, it's a problem that so many people don't even realize they have until it's too late.
Yeah, and that's, again, a lot of addiction is first you have to admit you have a problem. And she struggles with that throughout this movie, even despite the fact that her best friend, Jane, is screaming from the hilltops that she has a problem. On the other side of this romantic equation, Hugh Dancy, Julio is more familiar with him than I am. Do you buy him here as a hunk, a Dermot Mulroney type?
I kept seeing Patrick Dempsey, man. I'm telling you. No, he's fine. He's got the looks. Yeah, it was surprising. I thought he was going to be more uptight, right? Because he has the accent and initially he seems like he has no sense of humor, right? He's kind of standoffish when they meet at the hot dog stand. But then as the movie goes on, you see that no, this guy is actually he has a plan and he's willing to bend the rules to get to his objectives. And like you said, he faces off against Fred Armisen and wins repeatedly.
Fred Armisen is his boss. The hierarchy of A-listers here goes Hugh Dancy, Fred Armisen, John Lithgow. The natural progression of things.
Yeah, and Lithgow reports to no one, not even PJ Hogan.
He reports to God. That's it.
Yes. And even then, God only bothers him when it's absolutely necessary. For the most part, Lithgow gets to run wild. He gets, 2 scenes in this movie? 3, I think, right? He's at the restaurant too when they're having that dinner.
Yeah.
That's it. It's like Killers of the Flower Moon. You only get him for like a few minutes. So you got to make the most of it.
And then Isla Fisher, of course, this was her first leading role in a big motion picture. She had that bit part in Scooby-Doo, the Scooby-Doo movie. And then I think what kind of ingratiated her to the masses was her role in Wedding Crashers.
Of course. What level clinger is she?
Whereas real ones like myself and Julio know it was London that truly won over the hearts of millions around the world. She was in the Lookout. That's
JGL.
JGL. Thank you. And then Hot Rod. She had the second leading role next to Andy Samberg in that. Definitely, maybe. Okay, so there were. Yeah, she would have been known by this point, and this was her first leading role that I think definitely launched her into another stratosphere.
I think it did, but also, Alex, I don't think I did a quick scan through her filmography. I think this is her only leading role as far as just a movie where she is absolutely the lead and everybody else is secondary. Like, she's been in other things as a supporting character or as a co-lead, but this is it. They didn't, and I don't think it's necessarily on her. I think that this is right around the time that romantic comedies were about to just disappear from movies in general. So,
yeah, you're right. I mean, like, I'm thinking of Bachelorette and The Beach Bum. Those immediately came to mind. But
let's not think about Beach Bum.
But again, to your point, those are all like ensemble casts.
Yep.
So yeah, this was the movie that was the Isla Fisher show, front and center there.
Yeah, treasure it, because it didn't happen again, and the way things are looking, it might not happen ever again.
I think she's okay with that financially. So
she still gets those Shopaholic checks.
That's right. She got 12 cents in royalties tonight for me watching on Disney Plus.
Oh, it's a naked man. Sorry, that gave me such a fright. I didn't know what it was. It's clearly he's beheaded. Who would do that to him?
Rebecca arrives and learns that the position has been filled internally, but that there is an open position with the financial magazine Successful Saving. Rebecca is interviewed by Successful Savings editor Luke Brandon, the man who had given her $20. She hides the scarf outside, but Luke's assistant, played by who, Julio?
Oh, yeah, God, Julie Haggerty.
Mm-hmm.
Julie Haggerty, I don't know how the stars have converged so that she shows up almost back to back, but because I was just editing the Noises Off episode in
a Bogdana film and then a PJ party,
right? But they're not even, like they're like a decade apart.
Oh yeah,
and she looks the same, and she's kind of doing the same thing where she's just being awkward in the background, and it works. I mean, obviously that's why you cast Julie Haggerty.
Knowing she's been caught, Rebecca leaves. That evening, she and Suze, while intoxicated, write letters to Alette and Successful Living, but she drunkenly mails each respective letter to the wrong magazine. Luke, impressed by the letter intended for Alette, hires her. As Rebecca is hesitant to use her real name, Luke publishes her writing under the moniker The Girl in the Green Scarf. Rebecca's column becomes a huge hit amongst business groups, and even Rebecca's own parents advise her to read the articles. The Successful Living magazine eventually goes international, bringing much praise to Rebecca from both Suze and her workplace peers. After being asked to participate in a TV interview, Rebecca meets with the editor of Alette to purchase a dress for the occasion. So these few articles here, she just was taking over the world. She's gone viral in a sense. She's the Haktuya girl of her day.
Oh God!
Difference, of course, being that she's writing about things that have redeeming qualities and offering something to the world instead of just being a drunk person that said something stupid and then the world ran with it.
Well, we're desperate for entertainment, Alex, because they didn't make any more Shopaholic movies.
That's
so
right.
We gotta make do with what
we need
have.
a distraction from the fact that there's not more Isla Fisher guided vehicles.
Yep. Were you disappointed that her column is not called Confessions of a Shopaholic?
Yeah, definitely.
It's like, it was right there.
Carrie Bradshaw's column is called Sex and the City.
Yep. There you go. It's like, come on. Maybe we're spoiled because Bogdanovich has been dropping some pretty awesome titular lines in his movies, and PJ Hogan doesn't really want to mess with that. But yeah, she becomes almost an overnight success, and it's like, that's good. That's what the movies are for, to be to give us these flights of fantasy. I like that she obviously is not trained, like classically trained in how to write for this magazine, but the movie does just enough, makes just enough of an effort to make it believable that Hugh Dancy would be like, all right, I see the potential, right? You can't write, you don't know the terminology, but somehow you can explain things to the average person. And that is honestly, I think, a huge asset to, especially to a magazine that deals with something as dry as finance, you know? So I totally bought why she was why she seemed like a worthy employee to Hugh Dancy. That's probably like the biggest thing that the movie had to get me to believe, and it worked. Did you have the same reaction? Like, where you're like, yeah, this makes sense. Why don't we have more columns like this in the real world?
Yeah, I could see like her infectious charm and just the trust that was given to her in this position she kind of fell backwards into. Honestly, from this point through like up till the third act, this is basically just Big, where she's in a position she shouldn't be in and is way out of her depth, but like it's just overwhelmingly charming, and everyone is just kind of spellbound by her. They're swept up in her charm, and Leslie Bibb here plays John Hurd.
Yes. I don't get it.
Give me the goddamn ball, Baskin.
Yeah, you nailed it with that comparison, because yeah, it's true. She keeps failing upwards.
Yeah, and they're at like the convention in Miami, and everyone's just like, you know, can't believe how great she is and how fresh her ideas are and how refreshing her takes are. And I'm just like, dude, this is Big. All that's missing is her and Robert Loggia on a giant piano.
Deleted scene. It's just her and Fred Armisen. No, it would be her and Lithgow.
Yes. Oh my God, that would fucking rule.
Can't be a giant piano though. We don't have those anymore in the early 2000s. It would be like they're in Miami. Guitar Hero. So
oh, that would have been so of the time. That's perfect. I can't top that. I was going to try to think of something, but that's too good. It is worth calling out that during all of this happening, Suze is trying to get her to get some help. So she gets these like self-help tapes for her to follow. And we have to call out that a wild Ed Helms appears here. And this, of course, would be the year that his life and fortunes would change forever in the release of The Hangover.
I thought you were going to say this was the year that that he took over The Office as the main character.
No,
that's much later. Now that you plays The Hangover there, I can see that's a little too early. We get 5 minutes of Nardog in. That works. That got me excited. And honestly, Alex, I thought that there was going to be a big reveal coming up where he was the debt collector, because there's this.
Oh, go ahead and explain the subplot, but we'll get to the reveal.
So the evil, there's an evil figure, the real villain, even worse than Leslie Bibb, because Leslie Bibb is just human.
The real evil here is
capitalism,
the broken financial system of the United States, just giving unlimited credit lines and access to money that, you know, they're just going to charge you back triple for is and the lack of education, fiscal education of the public. I think that's something people talk about all the time now. Is like, why the fuck don't they teach that in school?
And to its credit, the movie actually teaches you about it in a way, like a very superficial way, but it's there. It's making an effort. But yeah, there's this character, the debt collector. He keeps trying to get a hold of Isla Fisher, and they always give him the runaround, because the way it works is if they don't make direct contact with you, then eventually, you know, you have to make it like 7 years without getting contacted, like getting direct contact, and then that means that they can't, the debt just goes away. But the moment that they make contact with you, the clock resets, and then you have to go back to zero and start counting the 7 years again. So anyway, there's this shadowy figure, because we see like close-ups of his mouth, and we see him like from the back when he shows up at her apartment, and she keeps giving him lies. Oh, my grandma died, my aunt had an accident, oh, I'm sick, and so on. And anyway, you know that there's going to be a reveal. And Ed Helms, I was like, there's no way they only got Ed Helms to be on an infomercial for like 5 minutes. I thought that was going to be the big twist, that the guy that was so helpful in the infomercial was also her nemesis, the guy that was hunting her down. Not quite. That's fine, you know. As much as I would have liked to see Ed Helms be a real villain here, I had to live with what the movie gave me, which was still good enough. Because if the movie had tried to, at some point, tell me that the debt collector was just another quirky character that had a soul, I probably would have pushed back and completely disconnected. But no, they commit to that guy being a son of a bitch, and that's great because he is.
That's good. I tell you, the more you look at me, the funnier that gets.
Now, on the other end of the spectrum, Alex, John Goodman and John Cusack.
The parents.
Adorable.
Mr. and Mrs. Bloomwood. Oh, absolutely. They seem like very wholesome, middle-of-the-road folk who are... they're very obvious. They're conscious about their spending to a point, because then they use their savings to buy an RV. They're motivated to do so. And that crushes Isla Fisher because she thinks she's going to get that inheritance, but not to be. But yeah, I mean, John Goodman is likable and like everything. Even when he's a dickhead, like in Llewyn Davis, it's John Goodman. So come on. And then Joan Cusack, same thing. And pair them together, you got a winning combination there, my friend. You got something sweeter than Yoo-hoo.
Yeah. Goodman does magic. He does magic tricks. And John Cusack is always bartering and just looking for the next deal. They are not in the movie a whole lot, but when they show up, it just, you get the warm and fuzzies. You know, they show like they obviously really care for their daughter and they don't really judge her. That's something else I really liked is that as fucked up as her finances are and her situation is, she does have a really good support system. Like, she has loving parents and she has a really good best friend.
Yeah.
All kidding aside, like Kristen Ritter, Jane, she is playing against type, I think, in this movie. I don't know how familiar you are with her work, but I always think of Kristen Ritter as playing characters that are very conflicted and you know, in the worst case scenario, like her character in Breaking Bad, they're just conniving and bad influences. But even, you know, she was in Veronica Mars. She was in, you know, she was in one of those Marvel shows. She was Jessica Jones. She was this torture private eye. So to see her here play just the best friend that it always has your back, no matter what, she just keeps hugging you and telling you, okay, well, this is what we're going to do next. And it was cool. And it honestly, it really builds up to where you're afraid of what's going to happen when the movie inevitably makes Isla Fisher disappoint all of them. Because they're like, man, they were so good to you.
Rebecca later returns home to renewed confrontations with her debt collector, Derek Smith. Suze makes her attend Shopaholics Anonymous after purchasing dresses for her interview and Suze's wedding. The new Shopaholics Anonymous group leader forces her to donate all her new clothes. Unable to afford to keep both dresses, Rebecca buys back the interview dress, much to Suze's dismay. During the interview, Derek, in attendance, confronts Rebecca about her debt. Successful saving subsequently terminates Rebecca's column for bringing discredit on the magazine. So, this Derek Smith, she makes up this story that he's a stalker, so that buys her some time and protection from the magazine. But then, he confronts her on live television. A few things kind of happen during this time. There's a romance blossoming between Rebecca and Luke that hits a brick wall in the form of Leslie Bibb, the villain in this one. It's kind of fucked up what Luke does is kind of leads her on and then it's like, oh, by the way, I'm dating Leslie Bibb. And then does it in a way that's really like terse. Like Leslie Bibb shows up and he's like, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to town.
We're going to the ball and you're not. They have a pretty awesome dance. Hugh Dancy and Isla Fisher have a pretty awesome dance where I could just feel the power of PJ Hogan shining through.
Oh yeah.
What do you think of? I mean, obviously he's a dancer, like he's dancing the way you're supposed to dance, whereas Isla Fisher is a little more freestyling it. Do you find that charming?
The bad white people dancing trope.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you're always very, very strict when it comes to rating white people's dances. And you're like, Travolta's at the top, and then everybody else is miles below.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm glad you've come around to this.
Yes, but I think that just to go back to Pulp Fiction, personality goes a long way, and the way that the abandon and the happiness that Isla Fisher has when she's dancing, I think makes up for how badly she's performing on the dance floor. I mean, obviously, Hugh Dancy seems pretty amused by it. He likes it. Apparently, he doesn't like it enough to just break it off with Leslie Bibb right away, but he's interested.
He's certainly leading her on.
Playing the field.
I guess so. Did you catch upon her return to New York City when she's like trying to get away from Smythe? There's a shot that lingers on a billboard of Jake Gyllenhaal and Prince of Persia. Did you catch that?
No.
I was like, that was weird.
Out of all the movies.
Wrapped up in that paragraph I just read is all of the Oscar clips from this movie. You have the best actress, potentially best film, and best adapted screenplay scene of Isla Fisher explaining her addiction to Hugh Dancy, who understands that she has a problem, but he can't get over the fact that she lied to him the way she did. And during that scene, she gets all teary-eyed and really delivers the lines in a very believable way. I thought that was definitely her Oscar clip. Was there anything else, any other part of this movie that you would contend differently?
Well, Kristen Ritter gets her best supporting moment.
Yes.
When she finally turns, right?
Yeah, that is definitely true, where she snaps about the dress, her bridesmaid's dress getting sold, and Isla Fisher goes, I can explain. And like they're in the stairwell at their apartment, and she just stops and turns around. She goes, okay, explain. And then she breaks down and just screams, explain. It's kind of out of nowhere and pretty impactful.
Yeah, you're not expecting it because this character has been so supportive the entire time and so cool-headed, right? She never lost her patience with her friend, and now she finally does.
That I can absolutely explain.
Okay. Explain.
Oh.
Explain!
By the way, I mean, gotta call it out. It's a PJ Hogan movie, and there's a wedding underway. We're building up the wedding. A wedding is part of the climax. It's
just can't stay away.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see him come back to what he does. He can do with his eyes closed at this point, and I guess at some points he does. It's really good. It just felt like comfort food, and which we needed after the last two movies.
Felt like we were back home.
Yeah. Would you give the guy that plays the debt collector? Would you give him a best supporting nod when he attacks her at the TV station?
I don't know about that. And no disrespect to Robert Stanton, who plays Derek Smythe in this, but the reveal of him as the debt collector is fairly underwhelming.
He's like, who is this guy? It's not Ed Helms.
Yeah, it was just okay. And I mean, truth be told, he's surrounded by titans of the industry, but he didn't knock me off my feet at any point in this. So sorry, he would have lost out to what else came out in 2009? Zach Galifianakis in The Hangover.
He would have lost to Lithgow in this movie.
Oh yeah, John Lithgow easily.
The reveal of John Lithgow carries a lot more weight. This guy, the debt collector, when you finally get to see him for maybe half a second, you might think that he's Leland Orser, which I think would have definitely elevated that part to where we could seriously talk about awards buzz. But then no, you go in for the close-ups and he starts talking like, this guy's trying, but you're right. He's not a name. And at this point we are surrounded by names. We have built up a movie that is just populated by names. So kind of falls flat. He does come across still as just the nastiest person, the nastiest character in the movie. And like I said, I think that holds true for debt collectors. So it's good. You hate him, and then eventually when he gets his comeuppance, it's very rewarding.
Yeah, I can't imagine too many, really empathetic folk get into that line of work. Rebecca's father is sympathetic to her plight and offers to sell his RV to help. She declines, saying that he earned the camper through his years of hard work and saving, and that she needs to take responsibility for her own actions. Rebecca is offered a position at Alette, but declines after learning she would be expected to lie to the readers. This is where Kristen Scott Thomas comes to their house, has some tea, a small slice of cake, and basically gives her the speech about, this is the real world, grow up. And Rebecca is starting to, come around on having a heart, and also understanding her situation and not wishing that and not wanting to spread that to others, I guess is the way of putting it. Meanwhile, Luke starts a new company, Brandon Communications, because I guess Brandon Wrights was taken already.
He stood up for Isla Fisher in a way that you wouldn't have expected from the way he reacted to her Oscar speech, right? When she's explaining her affliction, he is very non-sympathetic. But then when he's in front of Lithgow, he's like, you know what? She disappointed me as a person, but I stand by the work, which I guess explains it, right? He can compartmentalize.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He's like, and Lithgow, proving that he's the smartest person in the room, he acknowledges, he's like, you're right. Fred Armisen, take a walk. I'm going to give this guy his own magazine.
Yeah, and Fred Armisen has to eat some crow in this. And he doesn't do too much in it, but he is definitely he and Leslie Bibb are competing for the villain role in this.
I mean, after the debt collector who takes the trophy.
Of course, yes. Yeah. He's Thanos.
Yes. Yeah, they're constantly, Fred Armisen more than Leslie Bibb. I think he does eat crow throughout the movie. There's so many times where he just goes against Isla Fisher and then has to eat his words because it turns out that everybody loves her. And this is no exception. But then Luke shows that he also has grown. So he turns down the offer from Lithgow and says, no, I'm going to strike out on my own because that's what Isla Fisher said I should do back when we were dancing. He takes Julie Haggerty with him, which is pretty cute. And then through Julie Haggerty, he finds out that there's an auction coming up that is, I guess Isla Fisher is auctioning all her stuff, everything that she's ever bought in her Shopaholic tenure.
Yes, in order to generate enough revenue to repay her debts, fellow Shopaholic Anonymous members help Rebecca stage an auction for her used clothing. She finally earns enough money to pay back all her debt when she sells the famous green scarf for $300, giving the money to Derek entirely in pennies to make it as inconvenient for him as possible. So, yeah, she puts together here this big auction that word spreads quick, and there's a good turnout, and they buy everything, and then, yeah, her famous green scarf is the centerpiece that saves the day.
Did you recognize the leader of Shopaholics Anonymous?
Wendy, what's her name?
Malik.
Wendy Malik, yes. She's Jesse Eisenberg's mom in Adventureland, amongst many other things she's done in her career. Honestly, I always think of Just Shoot Me when I think about her.
That's what I was going to say. You being the huge David Spade fan that you are, I would have thought Just Shoot Me would have been the answer right away. But you're right. Adventureland is more of a Contrarians connection.
She's also in The Goods, which I just recently rewatched. She doesn't have too much to do in that, but it's a great movie, so it's worth calling out.
My name is Miss Korch. I am your new group leader. I do things differently.
After reclaiming her bridesmaid dress, Rebecca arrives at Suze's wedding, where the two reconcile. After the wedding, Rebecca walks past a store window and is briefly tempted to make a purchase, but ultimately walks away. Okay, this isn't framed as awesome as it actually is, because throughout the movie, one of the things we see from the perspective of Rebecca is that she's enticed by these mannequins that come to life and like, hey, you should buy this. Hey, doesn't this look nice? Etc., etc. And they try to tempt her at the end here, but when she keeps moving and doesn't go into the store to buy something, the mannequins start clapping for her.
Yeah.
And she's like walking down this street of applause, and she from there winds up in the arms of Luke. It's quite the sequence of events that takes place.
It's PJ Hogan unleashed. This is Julie Andrews walking into the cockpit and singing everybody through the turbulence.
God bless, yeah.
It's just that surreal moment that shouldn't make sense, but it makes sense in the context of the movie. And yeah, you're right. When they started clapping, I was like, oh, there he is, hidden under all the Hollywood blockbuster stuff. There's PJ Hogan peeking out. It's a happy ending we wanted, right? We wanted her to be more responsible with her expenses, but we also wanted her to end up with Hugh Dancy.
Yeah, and she does run into Luke, who returns the green scarf to her, revealing that the woman who bought it was his agent. They kiss, and Rebecca begins working with Luke at his new company. It's a happy ending.
Is there a new column there called Confessions of a Shopaholic?
I didn't catch it, honestly.
I didn't either, but that would be like dropping the ball twice.
But we have one of our favorite tropes here at the end, where all of the side inconsequential characters we meet along the way are all there at the end for like a reunion of sorts.
Dude, speaking of,
and we get John Goodman dancing.
Yes, that is the best way to just exit on a high. He's not just dancing. He has Joan Cusack dragging him making him spin across the dance floor. It's pretty cute. But speaking of inconsequential side characters suddenly making the most of it, there really has to be a name, like a term, a professional term. Maybe there is. Let us know, listeners. For the small character, it's not written to be a big part, but then the actor makes it a big part. I guess it's kind of like what the Embry honors, but in this case, I'm talking about like a one scene character. And that would be the receptionist she meets at the very beginning of the movie. You know what I'm talking about? When she first goes to the job interview. And he tells her, oh, no, that position's already filled, but you should apply.
Oh, yeah, the guy who like works at the building.
Yeah. He shows up twice, actually, because the first time is in this, that opening scene where he's going for it. He's just trying to make every line so memorable. And then when she sets up the auction in the climax, you get to see him again, seeing the announcement for the auction and going like, oh, I got to let people know about this. On paper, that is nothing. And then this guy, I think I got the right guy, Steven Guarino. From his IMDb picture, it looks like that's him.
Okay.
I think that he goes, look, I'm not gonna get his hopes up. I'm not gonna tell him that he stands a chance of winning a supporting actor Embry this year. That's usually the most contested category anyway. But at the very least, he caught my attention. I told him, look, if we were like the Academy and we had 10 nominees, you might make the cut. But we take the Embry seriously, so we limit those. But anyway, yes, everybody's together at the end. It's a happy ending. It's what we want for movies, at least for this type of movie. I don't want it to give me, I don't know, some sort of deep exploration of why America was crashing at the time. This is meant to be escapism. And if they can also show us a little bit about addiction and mental illness and all stuff, then all the better. But in the end, what I want is happy ending, and I get that in spades.
Absolutely. We talk about it all the time. Sometimes just the most obvious conclusion is the one to come to. And I know this is based off of a pre-existing property, but they stick the landing here. And Josh Baskins returns home.
Shopaholic will return, at least in print form. Anyway, that was Shopaholic and her adventures. You ready for real talk, Alex?
Yes. Let's get out the bills and get down to brass tacks here.